Welcome and peace be upon you. On this week's show, we'll be looking at dawah within Islam or calling to Islam and what it's all about. And later on in the show, arts and entertainment within Islam. First up, we have Hussein Hamdani, a lawyer from Hamilton and the vice chair of Nasr. So nice to have you on the show.
Thank you, Bassem.
So Hussein, I want to talk about this concept about dawah within Islam and what it's all about. It's loosely translated as, call to Islam or invitation to Islam. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I think invitation to Islam is an accurate definition. The concept in Islam is that there's no compulsion in religion, la ikraha fi din. And people are asked or invited to explore their spiritual path. And that's what we Muslims need to do a better job of, I think, is just letting people understand better Islam. Recently there is a survey of Muslims in Canada and non-Muslims in Canada.
Okay.
And the non-Muslims were asked what their impressions of Islam were. And the ones who had never met a Muslim had a very negative impression of Islam. The ones who had met a Muslim before had a much more positive image of Islam. The point being that the more we Muslims interact, talk to, communicate with non-Muslims, the better Muslims will look and the more approachable Islam will be as a faith. I was asked recently to meet with some Ismailis and to help them better understand Sunni Islam. I was more than happy to do so. Obviously, they're searching. They're looking for a path. We're here to help them with that path. I know that the universities are usually the best places where these interactions can occur because students are hungry to learn. No matter where they're from, they're hungry to learn. They're hungry to explore. They're in an academic setting. And that's why I've always felt that if we want to do real dawah in Canada, we need to support the MSAs and the university students, because my experience is that more people embrace Islam in the university setting than they do once they graduate.
Okay, so just to follow from that, so what would you say the main objective of Islam is? You're mentioning things like, we want people to, I guess, come into Islam. Now, is that the main objective, or are there many different objectives?
No, the objective in Islam is the objective of human beings, which is to have a relationship and worship their Creator. And that's all we're inviting people to do. Ask the tough questions like, why were you here? Why are you on this earth? Who created you? And to make them understand that the only objective in this world is to recognize, to worship, and to have knowledge of their Creator. And that's what we want them to do. It's not, we don't want people to become Muslim so that we have demographic numbers that we can, then spew out in a debate or a conversation. We want people, human beings, to recognize that they were created for a reason, it wasn't in haste, and that God has a plan for them. It's difficult because there are many stereotypes about Muslims, but if people could just suspend their stereotypes, pick up a text, meet a Muslim, come to the Islamic Dawah Center here, meet with other Muslims so that they can establish a relationship with their Lord. That's the #1 priority.
Okay. So could you mention like different ways how someone can give dawah? I know the traditional way someone might say to give dawah is, knock on someone's door. Are there many different other ways that Muslims can do this?
Yeah, I mean, God has given us many ways and opportunities to have a light. Now, one thing we should remember is that only God guides, that only Allah guides. We are only tools or means or methods of that guidance. And so sometimes we're used in different ways. A lot of people become Muslim because their classmates in university had good, proper etiquette. And they just, I'm not trying to boast here, but when I was an undergraduate student, we had 10 people become Muslim in 1 year. And it's only because the Muslims loved being with one another. We had very good etiquettes. We hung out with each other in the cafeteria. We enjoyed each other's company. And people saw that and said, I want that. Whatever they have, I want that. And they would approach us and we'd invite them over for dinners and lunches and MSA events and all. The more exposure they got to just the etiquette of the Muslim community, the sincerity in worshiping their Lord. Even though we're Western students, we're westernized, we play sports, etc., we still made time for worship, and people were impressed by that.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying is practically as Muslims, when we're dealing with everybody around us, I think the best way is just to, I guess, have great character. Is that essentially what you're saying?
I think so. I don't think you need to knock on people's doors with the Quran in one hand and a stick in the other and say, become Muslim. I think the best way to do dawah is to have very good etiquette, #1, to worship yourself, to worship to be a good worshiper yourself, and so that people can see that sincerity, and then to be knowledgeable about your religion, so that when people do ask you questions, you have an answer, or you're familiar with the religion enough to answer people's questions.
Okay, so I guess it's much different than, I know some people, they might have this conception that, you know, when Muslims give dawah or they call others to Islam, it's the same idea of, you know, missionaries, let's say, within Christianity.
No, we're much more, I mean, there's some criticism of the Muslim community in that we don't do enough overt missionary activity. But for the most part, our community is an invitation community. We're not a compelling community. We're not a coercing community. We don't hide people. We don't keep people in their houses for 3 hours until they like give up. We're not telemarketers. What we do is we invite people to worship their Lord, and that invitation is there for their acceptance or their rejection, or to come back and ask questions. So some people have criticized within our own community that we don't do more of an effort to do dawah. I think there is some legitimacy in that criticism. I think we can do a better job inviting people to this deen. But I still think the number one way is if we just maintain ourselves in a very high professional manner, etiquette, responsibility, accountability, and the people will be gravitating and be attracted to that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, stay tuned everyone. After the break, we have question and answers.